but I didn't need to know right
Mm,
now. I just knew everything was okay and everything would be okay. And then at that moment, Erickson turns to me and he says, and your
that's right.
unconscious mind has just made an important decision.
So my guest today is Dr. Connirae Andreas. She's an internationally respected leader and innovator in the fields of neurolinguistic programming, personal transformation for around 40 years, I guess. Your work has been translated into more than 15 languages, and many consider that it shaped the world of coaching and therapy in many ways, from the NLP to the core transformation work to now the wholeness work. Um, you're widely known for your developing of the core transformation process, a method that gently guides people to profound states of peace and oneness, building on a lifetime of exploration. From that, you have your latest creation, the Wholeness Work, which is a unique and precise path for personal evolution that you talk about a lot. And coming to wholeness, and there's the Wholeness Level 1 book. So there's two books on wholeness right now, correct?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, I've got 2 books on it so far. More to come.
So uh, hopefully so. Hopefully so. So I'm curious, how did this all start? Like, how did you get introduced into the world of NLP? And were you curious about psychology before? How did it all start?
Yes, I was in graduate school in a PhD program in clinical psychology when I first learned about NLP. And
Hmm.
my husband he was a Gestalt therapist. He was well known in the Gestalt community already. And he had an MA in psychology from Brandeis University. He had studied with Abe Maslow. So both of us had this psychology background, and we were both very familiar with everything available in therapy at that time and in personal growth. And there wasn't as much as there is now. But then we learned at a conference, we were at a conference and we learned about this new field called NLP. And
Interesting.
right away, it was quite exciting to us. It sounded too good to be true, really. But we thought, if there's anything of truth in this, we would like to investigate. So we began going to trainings and we were very impressed with what that it changed. It shifted our path. It shifted my path professionally, getting involved in NLP at an early age like that.
And what prompted the books? Like the main books that were edited by you and Steve were very, very influential. But what prompted that? Like, how did you get to do these books with?
Yes, good question. Well, here we were excited by NLP. It was this new field. It seemed really promising. We thought there's a lot here. There's,
Mhm.
NLP had a precision. It had specific formats that you could use to get specific results. This was new in the field of therapy. That hadn't
Mhm.
existed before. So we were very excited. But we also were aware that most people were completely unaware of this new field. Most people had never heard of it. And
Mhm.
so we thought, what can we do to help make it more available, more accessible? And we realized there were no popular books, no really easy to read, accessible books on NLP. So we proposed to Bandler and Grinder
Mhm.
to create some books using transcripts of their trainings as the foundation, as the basis. So that's what led to Frogs into Princes. And then with Frogs into Princes, we were very cautious with our editing because Richard and John agreed to this, but they told us stories about how when people edited their work, they inevitably made it worse and took out all the important things. So we were very cautious editors on that first book. And as we learned more and understood the principles behind the work better, we started gaining confidence and we started doing more editing. Because really, the way someone speaks in a seminar is going to be, it comes off differently if it's in a book. So it really needs to be edited a bit to make it have the same message in a book that you convey in a live seminar. So for transformations and reframing, we did more editing. Yeah. Does that, but we did, and these books did become, um, they weren't New York Times bestsellers, but they sold a lot of copies internationally. They were, Frogs into Princes sold the most, and Transformations the next. They sold in the hundreds of thousands of copies. So
Mhm.
that was pretty significant. One of the books sold, I think, 750,000 copies in
Wow.
those early days.
I think lots of people in the field consider them as cornerstones, like a must read for people to get introduced into NLP.
Yes, I think so. And they're out of print now, so you have to find used copies, but you can find them. You can find them. I recently got a used copy of Transformations myself because I lost my originals in the flood. And I thought, oh no, I've got to have one of these originals. But yes, many people still tell me they still value, I think often, especially Transformations at this point, people are saying that's a book they still use.
I was once coming back from Greece from an NLP training with Robert Tilts, and as I arrived here to Beirut, there was a person that was coming also from Greece. He had two books. He had Transformations, and he had, I think, uh, another, not by Real People Press or you guys, but I didn't have them. So as I saw him get out of the plane, I started following him till we got to the luggages. I'm like, "Would you sell me these?" He's like, "No," he ran away from me. So it was really tough before I actually eventually found it on
Yeah,
Amazon.
that's funny.
So,
Yeah.
so from there, then there was NLP Comprehensive, where you led lots of trainings with different trainers, and then how did that become later on core transformations? Like from the NLP comprehensive experimentations, I believe you started doing the core transformation stuff.
We were still, we still owned and ran NLP Comprehensive when I developed Core Transformation. Really, I'd say the roots of Core Transformation came in a visit to Dr. Milton Erickson.
Hmm.
That's that was the impetus because I can tell the story briefly here if you want, but I don't have
Yeah.
to go. I have written it down in places, although I'm surprised how many people haven't heard it because it was an amazing experience that I had with Dr. Erickson. I think probably all of your community knows who Dr. Erickson is, right? That's
Yep.
familiar. Okay, yes. So, and my husband and I, we considered him like, he's the guru of therapy. He, he's sort of the mad magician who can get results even with the toughest clients. So I had the chance to go visit him at a certain, as a part of a small group. He was seeing groups of therapists. He would only
Hmm.
accept therapists at this phase. This was the last year of his life. He
Hmm.
only accepted therapists in small groups for a week. We would come and meet with him half a day every day for a week. And I, a friend of mine who was a therapist, she asked me to join. And I was having this kind of semi-crisis in my life at the time. I don't want to get too dramatic about it, too pretentious, but I was it was for me an agonizing decision that I felt I need to make a decision of whether or not Steve and I had been partners. We were not married. And we had
Hmm.
not made the choice to be life partners. So I thought it was time. We'd been together about 5 years, and I thought it's time for us to either decide to get married, do the whole thing, or decide, no, this is not going to work. You're very nice so far. Thank you very much. Goodbye, you know. So, and I really was torn about what to do. Neither choice felt right. So,
Hmm.
so when I went to see Dr. Erickson, I asked him for a private session. The very first day I asked him for a private session before we got into this group, just one on one. So he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Yes." And he has this big nod. But then he turned away. And I'm thinking, oh no, what does this mean? How do I set up a session? I'm glad he
Mm,
said yes, but I have no idea what to do next.
mhm,
And so then there was a whole series of things that happened. It felt like a kind of, in retrospect, it felt like a kind of dance where he would go back and forth between, and I got more and more confused. He would go back and forth between dangling something in front of me, like a hope that maybe I would be able to get assistance, some help with this, and uh,
mhm.
and having my hopes dashed. So because after he said yes to me, then we're in the small group, and pretty soon he's saying, "Oh, just last week I got this letter in the mail. It was from my licensing board, and it said my license to do individual therapy has expired." And then he laughed like this was really funny. And I'm going, "Oh no, what does this mean? Maybe he can't see me." So it was this back and forth. And I think I don't need to necessarily tell you all the details of it. But it- Back and forth, hope maybe he'll use me as a demo subject. No, he's not using me as a demo subject. Finally, he uses me as a demo subject, but nothing happened. So finally, on the last day, I gave up hope for anything personal for myself. I thought, okay, I'm going to just watch and listen to him. I'm going to watch for the embedded commands, the analog marking. I'm going to watch what he's doing with everybody else in the room. And
Mhm.
I thought I could see quite a bit of it. That was my opinion anyway. But I have no idea if I was right or wrong. Uh, but then, about an hour and a half into the session, all of a sudden, it's like this wave, something came over me
Mhm.
where I literally felt like I was a different person. And
Wow. Okay.
I just have no other way to describe it. I had no idea what was happening, but I felt in a way I'd never felt before. And I didn't have any words for it at the time, but as I reflected on it later, it was this feeling of well-being, I guess, of just kind of a feeling that everything is okay, but more than just okay, like really okay. Really okay. So it was this kind of well-being that was undisturbable, is how it felt like. And
Mhm.
as I had this feeling sitting there, I kind of thought, uh, you know, I still have no idea what I'm going to do, but
Mhm.
somehow I feel like it's all handled. Like I
Okay.
don't need to know, or I will know when the time is right, you know, but I didn't need to know right
Mm.
now. I just knew everything was okay and everything would be okay. And then at that moment, Erickson turns to me and he says, "And your
That's right.
unconscious mind has just made an important decision."
Mm.
And I'm going, okay. I had been wondering if this had to do with him. I didn't know. I didn't know how it happened, but it obviously had to do with him, and he knew what was happening. And then he said to me, "And you don't know what it is." And then I thought, whoa, wow, he's really tracking my
Mm.
experience. And then I had the thought, if he offers a private session now, I don't know what I would work with. I don't think I have anything, you know. And then he said, "And do you still feel a need to work with me privately?" And then I laughed, he laughed, the whole group kind of laughed because um, it was funny. Um,
Mhm.
but that change for me felt so profound. Over the next couple weeks, I felt this literal kind of bubbling inside of me, that I didn't know what it was, but a bubbling. And then at the end of about 1 or 2 weeks, I knew what I needed to do. And
Mhm.
it was basically, I became clear that there were three kind of agreements or understandings that would need to be in place for me for this relationship to work for fit for me. And so I
Mhm.
I talked to Steve, I shared that with him, and the thing that was unique for me is that as I shared with him, I had no need for him to decide to agree on the same thing.
Mhm.
I really, really wanted him to do what was right for him.
Mhm.
I didn't feel the kind of neediness like, oh, I hope he decides, I hope he agrees, and then we can have this nice relationship. That just wasn't a part of it. And I had never felt that way in my life before. That kind of just like, okay, this is what fits for me, but I really want to know what fits for you. And then
Mhm.
let's see if there's a match or not. And it felt so kind and so respectful. It felt good. And it was so he ended up, you can probably guess what he decided because we did get married and and the rest is history.
Mhm.
But that but then the problem came for me that state of well-being, it started unraveling. It didn't
Mhm.
last. That equanimity, that sense everything's fine, that sense of completely unneurotic, if I could use that word, com lack of neediness, lack of being afraid of what would happen if, and that kind of stuff. It just wasn't a part of what felt real to me. But then that fell away, and I started again having my usual, the kind of fears and ambivalences, and trying to please other people, those kind of things that were a part of my history they returned again. So that though, it was the seed planted by that experience with Dr. Erickson. That's what led to core transformation.
Okay.
Because after that, I left no stone unturned to try to find a way back.
Right. Okay.
Erickson died before I could get back to see him again.
Mhm.
That was my first choice for how to find the way back. I'll just go visit Dr. Erickson. He'll wave his magic wand again. It'll all be good. That seemed pretty straightforward. But he died before I could get there. I booked a session, but he ended up passing away. So
This is
it meant it
like
was back to me. I had to find the way.
this is like the inverse of the quote. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. For you, this was when you were ready, the teacher disappeared. So you had to discover it on your own.
I love that thought, Ronnie. Yeah, yeah. When the student is ready, the teacher disappears. Yeah,
In this
yeah.
case,
Yes, yes.
so
In this case, that's how it went. Yeah, and I think it was both true. It's like I needed that experience with him, and he did appear in my world, and that happened. And then he disappeared, and what that led to, what that meant is that in struggling to find a path back myself, the
mhm.
first thing that came was core transformation, and then um, that was enough for a while,
Mhm.
and then through a deeper crisis, I guess, a bigger life crisis where I thought I was probably dying. That's what led me to even let go of core transformation and think I need a still deeper pathway.
Mhm.
I still need something that goes deeper. And that's what led to the wholeness work. So in a
Okay.
way,
Yeah.
so I have, it's a big thank you to Milton Erickson, because without that glimpse of what was possible, I wouldn't have known
Mhm.
what to search for, what to
Mhm.
find a pathway to. And
Okay.
and then he left me on my own it would have been great if he'd stayed alive, but
Mhm.
he left me on my own at perhaps the right time, because the pathway that I found back is probably not the same pathway. It was probably not the same as however he brought that experience to light within me. Um, but the
Mhm.
pathway that I found is something that anyone can follow.
Okay. Okay.
So
My
that
last
means,
question about Milton,
yeah.
because I'm curious. He's been passed away for a very long time. Not a lot of people had access to him and his work. So other than that experience, how was he in person? Like there's lots of mystique to Milton and the way that he worked with people, but what's the reality version of that? Is there anything that people might be interested in knowing that's not seen or read in books or seen in the videos?
Mhm. I have no idea what people have seen in the books, but I think in person, and I think it's very personal. The first time I got to see him two different times. The first week I went to him, um, I was mostly just intimidated. Here was the great Milton Erickson, and we were a small group in a small room. So he was right there. It's not like being at a conference where somebody is at the front of the room and you're way back somewhere. We were all
Mhm.
there in one circle. But that first time around, I felt kind of intimidated, and I was mostly quiet. And
Okay.
the second time around, and I was a young graduate student. I was what, 20, something like 21 or 22, or I'd have to do the math, maybe
Mhm.
23,
Mhm.
24 at the oldest. I'd have to do the math to check on how old I was. Yeah. Then the second time, um, I also, he had a very strong presence.
Mhm.
Um, he he was already in a wheelchair. He was suffering from post-polio syndrome. So,
Mhm.
and he was wearing these, my husband called them pink pajamas, but they weren't really they weren't really pajamas. It was a kind of um a certain shade of pink purple. Our
Mhm.
understanding was it was the only color that he could really see because he
Mhm.
was colorblind. So he wore this unusual colored suit. And it was probably a comfortable kind of suit. So, but even though there he was in a wheelchair, not able to walk on his own at that point, his speech had become more slurred. He
Mhm.
had less control over his speech than in
Mhm.
his midlife. Um, because of post-polio syndrome. But even with all these things that we would count as disabilities, he came across as a very powerful presence, a very
Wow.
strong presence. There was no missing that.
Mhm.
Uh, and it was everything about his demeanor. It was the light in his eyes. Um, it was like he would look at people, and it was as if he's seeing a little more,
Oh,
seeing a
that's a-
little extra. And I experienced a kindness in his eyes too. Um, and I think you can see that in his photographs as well.
mm,
There,
Indeed.
yeah, yeah, this kind of um, kindness and compassion. And he never spoke about what he did as spiritual. He
Mhm.
was very pragmatic. It was all about ex experience. But the kind of kindness in his eyes and the way he saw people, I think saw through people, saw beyond people's masks. Um, I think that is very much like what the best of the spiritual teachers are like in terms of their presence and demeanor. So I
Mm.
hope I don't get in trouble with the Ericksonian community for comparing him to a spiritual teacher. But I think he was also quite um, different, and I respect that he didn't um, call it a spiritual path. And I
Mhm.
think this was this was kind of the intersection between how I ended up exploring the change that he brought about in me and,
Mhm.
and finding the wholeness work path. It's like this is the intersection between what's being talked about in spiritual disciplines, but with wholeness work, we find a practical and specific path that anyone can follow to get there.
Mhm.
It's something, it's not about beliefs. It's not about ideas or understandings. So
Mhm.
it's about specific experience. And I think that's what Erickson was about. He was about specific experience. He knew what he was doing was
Mhm.
he was eliciting experience that would be possible for anyone.
Okay, which leads me to my next question. If somebody's hearing about wholeness work for the first time, What is it in a nutshell? And is there like a core problem it is designed to solve? Because people, when they think of processes, they think of that.
Yes, there is a core problem it's designed to solve. I
Mhm.
love how you put that. The core problem wholeness work is designed to solve is the problem of being human.
Okay.
And most of us, if we're honest, we experience being a human being as a problem.
Hmm.
Living this life as a human being, we experience this as a problem. And wholeness work is designed to solve that problem. And
Hmm.
once we get into a little bit of the exercise, you'll see what I mean,
Hmm.
because it's going to this more fundamental level of experience,
Hmm.
and then it's in terms of who benefits from it and what we starting out might recognize, oh, maybe I'd be interested. I like that idea. You know,
Hmm.
wholeness work, it helps people with stress.
Hmm.
It's a reset of the nervous system, an easy reset of the nervous system. It
Hmm.
helps with fears, anxieties, all the human emotions, reactivity buttons. Basically, it helps us with the a lot of people have said to me, I've tried all kinds of therapeutic methods. I've tried personal growth methods. I've tried meditation. I've tried this, that, and the other, and nothing has helped me with X, Y, or Z issue. And now
Hmm.
finally, for the first time, I'm finding that I'm making some progress using wholeness work. So,
Nice.
so it works with things from very simple things,
Hmm.
simple, light problems to the
Hmm.
more major stuff. And
Okay.
it also is of interest to people on a spiritual path because many of those people who have been on a spiritual path for sometimes decades, they'll tell me, wow, with wholeness work, this is a path to what my spiritual teacher talks about. And I'm getting how it's direct, it's more simple. It's it's people say different people, each person says something different. Some people say, I can I've gotten here before, but with wholeness work it's faster than with the way in my meditation. Uh, and other people say, I've tried meditating for years. Meditation never worked for me, but this is finally working. So
Nice.
it seems to be that it's zeroing in on the precision of things, on the foundation of how the unconscious is structured so that
Hmm.
we can begin to change at that level. And that makes change simpler
All right.
and
So,
more reliable and more reliable.
okay. In the book Coming to Wholeness, you mentioned the spiritual teacher Ramana Maharshi. Could you share the story of your pivotal shift from the question "Who I am" to "Where is the I" located, and how you came up with the process?
Yes, yes, yes. Well, this was back, I had in 1997. Well, core transformation is something that I developed in 1989. Then in 1990, and it was doing really well. It was starting to really spread. And people globally were interested. There were translations into other language. Our trainings drew people from around the world. We couldn't just meet online like we do now. So they came to Colorado to study. But right in the middle of that, it seemed like as it was just building towards whatever would have been its peak, I crashed physically. So
Okay.
I had this experience. First, I had pneumonia or bronchitis, whatever it was, and then I felt like I was getting better, but instead I got worse.
Hmm.
I seemed to be getting better on one hand, but then my whole system crashed. And I felt subjectively, it felt like this constant surge of electricity going through my body 24/7,
Wow.
unrelenting, super
Hmm.
powerful, super intense, so that I couldn't think straight. I couldn't talk like usual. I couldn't interact with other people like usual. If I would talk to another person or read, it felt like almost like walking on broken limbs. It felt like using things I shouldn't really be using. It
Hmm.
it was a really intense experience, and I thought, okay, maybe this is what dying is like. I don't know. I've never died before. Maybe this is dying. But if it's not if it's not what dying is always like, sh I'm guessing that the intensity of this is likely to kill me because I don't think my body can withstand this very long. So, so then I had the thought, okay, if I'm going to do something besides die, if I have a chance to live, I think my best chance of surviving is to let go of everything I think I know and be open to something new. So
Mm-hmm.
that set me on a search, and I searched on all the levels. And I'd already physically seeing the doctors, the alternative health people. I'd already explored psychology. I'd already explored an NLP. Uh, and core transformation was very powerful for me, but I felt like somehow whatever I needed now, it was deeper. So I've got to let go of that too. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought, okay, the area I have not explored is in the area of spirituality. So I
Okay.
began to explore spiritual teachings, and especially I was interested in the writings of people who described this thing they called awakening, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever this is, it sounds like a good thing, It sounds like when people have this well-being thing, this sounds good to me. I like that. And the way Ramana Maharshi talked about it, he's one of the
Mm-hmm.
teachers that I read and respected. I did not meet him in person. He has already passed away by this point. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the way he described it, it's like, okay, when someone awakens, it's not just about some bliss state. It's this kind of well-being where the stresses of life, the normal problems of life, these problems of being human, they fall away
Wow.
and we can be present. It's not that we separate from life and we bliss out. It's we can be present here and do our best without being um, caught up in stress thinking and fears and other emotional reactivity. We can be present and do our best and be present from this place of deep well-being. And I thought, sign me up. I like this idea. so I, but then in reading and I spent a number of years finding out, can I pick this up just from by osmosis, by sitting in circles, watching videos of spiritual teachers like Papaji, for example, he has this nice presence. Can I just pick this up, maybe? And
Mm-hmm.
then I began, occasionally, I would begin to think, okay, I would see how in the spiritual circles people would go into this lovely state, but often it did not last into regular life. So, and this became sort of the common knowledge in spiritual circles. Okay, we can sit and we can bliss out, but then we still might get really pissed off at our neighbors, at our spouse, at our kids. Our buttons could easily get triggered. So, um, but what the way Ramanana Maharshi talked about sounded different. So I was interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
His main teaching was basically find out who you really are. And the one practice that he gave to people was to try to do that was to ask this question over and over again, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And
Mm-hmm.
over and over. And it became understood that it must be an advanced teaching because for most people it did not result in enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, I thought, what if we change that question? NLP, in my experience of NLP, it's always about if you're going to change experience, you have to start off by finding out where it's located. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first step. If you don't, just like
Yeah.
if you want to change, if your car's broken down and you want to start it again and your engine is broken, you have to know where the engine is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you don't have a chance of making the change you need. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking if we're going to do this thing called letting go of the ego,
Mm-hmm.
we have to know where it is.
Right. Okay.
And so then I'm thinking, what if we change the question from who am I to where is the I located?
Okay. Interesting.
That's how I made the shift. And I didn't have much hope in it when I did the first experiments because the teachers that I was sort of studying with or a part of their community, they
Mm-hmm.
said each one of them said there are no steps to awakening. If
Mhm,
you find if you find steps, it's not the true awakening. So
mhm,
I was halfway believing them on this, that it's not going to be possible to find steps.
mhm.
And but then the other part of me, sort of from my NLP background, I'm going, okay, but there's always steps. You know, if you understand the structure of this, you know, it depends. It's not random steps. If you use random steps, they'll lead you who knows where. But if you know this, if you understand the structure of something, perhaps you can find meaningful steps that will work. So that's what led to wholeness work. Am I answering your question?
Yes, definitely, definitely. I think personally, one of the things that attracted me to the books that you guys wrote and the videos that I could find online, because didn't manage to watch like the live NLP trainings that you did back in the day, and attending eventually wholeness levels 1 through 4 with you, is the spirit of experimentation and openness that Andreas NLP is known for. So a lot of people like introduced their models like Andrew Austin's Metaphors of Movement, Nick Camp's Provocative Change Works, Lucas Dirk's Social Panorama. The Andreases, just gonna label that, were the most open to get these models, and this experimentation always like intrigued me. Like these people are different, and they did things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
one of the things
yes.
um,
Go
that I'm
ahead.
curious about. Why did you call it the wholeness work, not ego dissolving or the awareness practice? Why wholeness?
Um, because the wholeness is the end result. And
Right.
I I was for a while, and my first thought in naming it was to call it the oneness work. I didn't know what to call it, but
Mm-hmm.
I was going to call it the oneness work. And my husband said, "No, no, don't call it that. That sounds too airy-fairy. It sounds like, you know, a new age thing." And so
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going, "Okay, well, what about wholeness work?" And he said, "Yeah, that'll work." And I am actually glad he encouraged me in that direction, because I'm happy with the name. Wholeness work, it is. The only problem with the name is that people don't know that they have a desire for wholeness ahead of time. You know, that's the problem with the name in terms of the reach out. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of it being an accurate description of what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good description. We get to this experience of undivided presence.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that is more unique and valuable than what people realize ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we could call it the de-stressing method, or the letting go of the ego method, or the resetting the nervous system method. You know, these things are all true,
Mm-hmm.
but the healing your deep unconscious emotional issues method, you know, we could call it the sleep better method. Because it is all of these things. But I think all of those are the results that are byproducts of coming to wholeness, literally
Mm-hmm.
coming to wholeness within ourselves. And
Okay.
once people start experiencing that, then they start recognizing its value.
Right. Okay. So you talk about moving from a state of separation to the state of oneness or wholeness. So what does that feel like in everyday life, and how does it change how a person experiences things?
Maybe this would be a good time to start doing the guided experience. Do you think so? And then once everyone has had a bit of an experience, then we can talk about it more easily. Does
Sure.
that sound like a good plan?
Yeah. So I'm going to turn off my camera so people just focus on you. And once you're done, I can open it back
Oh,
again.
actually, okay, whatever you want. What I'll do is guide you and me through. And
Okay.
if you're willing to go through it, I will go through it. You can go through it. We can use the answers we get as a part of the way to help
Oh,
everyone
sure. Sure.
watching
So I
better
will also,
understand. If
sounds
that's
great.
okay
Okay,
with
let's
you?
go for it. Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's go for it. Okay, so I've already alluded that wholeness is in wholeness work. The first thing we do with wholeness work is to find the what I call the limited self. And
Mm-hmm.
all the spiritual teachers seem to think that this is what leads to this well-being and all the good stuff. So I'm thinking, let's find out, you know. And like you said, that experimentation. So here's the first exercise that I did with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've modified it slightly to make it easier for everyone to join in a simple way, in an easy way. And then we can talk about the ramifications, why this matters, why does this make a difference, and how does this mean my life becomes easier, the stress dissolves, I can sleep better, emotional reactivity is healed. Why does that make sense? We can understand that better after we've done a little bit of the experience.
Let's
Okay?
go. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So the easiest way to begin is to just take a deep breath. Notice any body sensation at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this can be positive, negative, or neutral. And I'm noticing something here. Um, actually, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say exactly what my experience is. It's
Go
just
for it.
this feel. I can feel this slight need to pee coming on. It's don't worry, it's not so much that I have to leave the interview. That's just what comes. I'm sorry if we have
Mhm.
to. So,
But
so I have
it,
that sensation in my lower abdomen. And
mm-hmm.
you can notice whatever you notice, and for me, it's a slight sensation of pressure, maybe
Mm-hmm.
about this size and shape. And
Mm-hmm.
then you what you notice can be positive, it can be negative, it can be neutral. It doesn't matter. Um, so it might be, I could also notice where the sensation of my arms touches the chair,
Mm-hmm.
or the sensations of my legs touches the chair that I'm sitting on. I could notice sensation in my abdomen, or maybe something in my neck or my head. It could be anything. And what do you become aware of, Roni?
A slight tension around my hip area.
Okay, great, perfect. So this gives people two examples, a little tension around the hip area. And now we notice how much space it takes up,
Mm-hmm.
kind of notice the area it takes up. And then sensing in and through, we notice the sensation quality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for me, just a little bit of pressure. What is the sensation quality you notice?
It's more of like prickly, like somebody's pinching me with a toothpick, like a toothpick that's being
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like little prickles, like with a toothpick.
prickle.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And then those of you joining, you might find that, okay, maybe it's the sensation is um, swirling, maybe there's a stillness, maybe there's a tingling, maybe there's a pinching. It could be literally anything. And you don't have to even have words for it to just notice the sensation itself. And then what we do is we could each say to ourselves or think to ourselves, I am aware of this sensation, and this is a true thought, right? I
Mm-hmm.
am aware of this sensation. It's a true thought right in this moment. And then we ask the question, as we think this thought, I am aware of this sensation. Where's the I located? Where's the I that's aware of this sensation? And just notice what comes into awareness, what location. And Roni, what happens for you? Where's
Um, some in the left back of my head.
left back of head? Okay, great, perfect. And and there's no, for everyone else, you already know this, but for everyone listening, there's no right or wrong answer to this. There's not even a better or worse answer. Whatever answer comes up for you, that is the best answer. So,
Mm-hmm.
and what's the size and shape of this here on the left back of head for you, Ronnie?
Um, like a small loaf of bread.
Small loaf of bread size. Okay, great, great. And then for me, when I'm going, where's the eye that notices? I'm getting this sort of, I was going to say sphere, but then I'm getting corrected. It's kind of a cloud-like shape, and
Mm-hmm.
it's part in and part out of my head, more at the forehead, the upper part of my head, part
Mm-hmm.
in and part out. That's what I get. Okay. And for those of you joining in, the eye that you found, sometimes it could be located in the body somewhere, anywhere really. It could be in the chest, it could be in the head, um, it could be outside the body somewhere. And if it's outside the body, it could be close to the head or torso, or it could be far away. And again, no better or worse answer. Every answer is good. Just notice what location comes into awareness for you.
Mhm.
And then each of us can notice what's the sensation quality in and through the space of the eye. So for me, what's the sensation quality in and through the space of this cloud? And I'm getting, it is a little bit like cloudy substances, maybe just a slight uh, fogginess is what it's like. Yeah. And how about for you, Roni?
More like tingling and a bit of
Mhm.
tension.
Great, great, perfect, perfect. Okay, so now those of you joining, you can notice what's the sensation quality for you. And if you're not sure where the eye is yet, you can go back to the sensation quality, the sensation in the body. Notice the sensation in the body. Go, I am aware of the sensation. Where is the eye located? And just go with the first location that comes to you. And you can even guess, you can even make it up. You can even pretend you're getting an answer. All of that works fine. So then once you have your answer, pretend, guess, or otherwise, you notice the size and shape, sense in and through for the sensation quality. And it could be airy, it could be dense, it could be tingly, it could be foggy, it could be moist, cool, warm, light, it could be anything. Um, and once you've noticed one sensation quality, that's usually enough, one or two, just the sensation itself. Um, shall we okay to go on to the next step
Yeah.
then? Okay. Okay, now we go to the next step. Um, we each have found the sensation and we've found the I. Now we go to that sentence, I am aware of this sensation. And the
Mm-hmm.
only part of that sentence we haven't explored yet is the middle word, is
Mm-hmm.
awareness. We know where the
Mm-hmm.
I is located. We know where the sensation is located, but what about awareness? What's that? So, the
Mm-hmm.
next thing I like to do is guide everyone in a simple way to experience awareness that works for this process. I began to learn that even long-term meditators often had a different experience subject of awareness when they actually checked it out. So I guide people in this way that which is of experiencing awareness. This is how I'm using the word, and this is a way that works for this method. So we know that awareness exists through the body. We can know that, we can realize that because we were able to find a body sensation. If we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have awareness through the body, we wouldn't be able to find any body sensation. And
Mm-hmm.
by awareness, in general, I mean the capacity to experience, the capacity to sense, feel, notice. So awareness already exists throughout the body so that, and we can maybe pause and just sense that now, how awareness is throughout the body, so that
Mm-hmm.
if somebody bumped me on the shoulder, I wouldn't have to send my awareness over there to notice. It's already there, so there would be an automatic noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody bumps me on the knee, same thing. There's an automatic noticing because awareness is already present through the whole body. And it can be
Mm-hmm.
kind of nice to just experience that. And we can also recognize that awareness is also throughout the space all around us. And it's easy to recognize this because if there's a if there's a sound, somebody snaps their finger or calls my name from one side, again, I don't have to go out and grab the sound. I don't have to think, oh, me, I wonder if somebody's calling me. I better send my awareness out to go find out. I don't have to do that because the sound, there's just an automatic receiving of the sound.
Mm-hmm.
So there in our subjective experience, this is true if the sound comes from the right, the left, the front, the back, up, down, close, far. There's this automatic receiving of the sound. And there's this sense of this space all around where awareness is also present. And in our subjective experience, that space all around, it doesn't have an edge or border. In
Mhm.
in my mind, I can know if somebody's calling my name from the other side of the world. I probably am not going to hear that. But in my subjective experience, I can't find an edge where if they're calling on this side of the border, I'll hear it. And where on
Mm.
this side, oh no, I won't hear it if it's on the other side of that border. In my subjective experience, I can't find any edge or border. So we can all just pause now and just experience this awareness, this capacity to experience that is throughout the body and all around in every direction.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it can be kind of nice to just experience that for a moment. And then we can return to the I that we found a moment ago, each of us to the location where we found the I. And
Mhm.
you've got yours in the back of the head. I have mine here in the upper part of my head, part in and part out. And each person following along, you have yours. Now notice that again, the sensation quality of the energy in and through the space of the I. And then now we're going to invite an experiment. Just notice what happens when the sensation of the I is invited to open and relax in and as the fullness of awareness that is all around and throughout. And then, without any need to even understand what that means, just letting the words come in and letting whatever happens happen. And I'll say it one more time. Noticing the sensation of the I. Notice what happens when the sensation of the I is invited to open and relax in and as the fullness of awareness that is all around and throughout. And then you can just allow whatever happens to happen. And if nothing happens, that's fine. If something subtle happens, that's fine. And it's even fine if something strong or profound happens. It could be any one of those.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what happens for you, Ronnie, if you're willing to share?
Um, I felt a sense of heat dissipate from the area where this was, and a bit more relaxed and at ease.
Okay, yeah, a bit more relaxed and at ease. And I was so busy guiding, I forgot to do it myself, this last step. But if I just take a moment to do that. Okay. And I'm finding that for me, I needed to find one more level of I, which you can learn about more in the book, um, or in the
Mm.
training if you want to. But I'm just going to do it now. So yeah, and then it all dissolves. Then it all melts. And once it melts, then now I'm also, what happens for me is it's feeling like a bit of invisible rain from the heavens is what it feels like, all kind of settling down in and through me, and a little more relaxed. I am having that experience, and also it's like the world becomes a little bit lighter. The
Mhm.
literally more light I'm seeing, more open space and clarity. That's what happens. But I needed to get the second eye for that to release itself. For me today, that's how it worked. Um, Okay. So now, and I would love to be able to hear from each person watching what happens for you. That's where the fun is. I love to hear how it works for each person. What I find is that for some people, Well, I want to start off by saying your experience is always right. There's never a different experience that is more right. And in wholeness work, whatever your actual experience is, that always tells us what needs to happen next, what we need to do next. So some people, just from this simple basic exercise, have emailed me and said, I found your video, I watched your video, I did the basic exercise. It was profound, and then they describe the emotional changes that happened for them in their life. Like
Mhm,
one of these is written up in Coming to Wholeness in the introduction.
mhm,
I share one of these with you. Um, so some people have a profound experience just from that beginning exercise, but not nearly everybody. I'd say for most people, it's a subtle shift, maybe kind of like what you described, Roni, is like, oh yeah, a little bit more relaxed, a little more at ease. And
mhm,
and other people say nothing happened, nothing at all, or even it tightened up a little bit, you know. And that again, that's when that happens, that's perfect too. And it just tells us what it tells us is that we need the next steps.
mhm.
You need is
I have a.
probably what I just did quickly in myself without describing it to you.
Mhm,
Um, but I want to share that for me, my very first experience of this, for me personally, the result was so subtle. It was more subtle than what Roni described. It
mhm,
was so subtle, I wasn't sure if anything was happening or not. And
mhm,
it was so subtle, I definitely was not convinced yet that I was on the right track with this.
mhm,
I thought, maybe this doesn't really do much. Not sure this is really but then, I'd let go of it, but I kept coming back, exploring more. And what I started to learn, I discovered more in exploring in myself, I learned the intricacies of it. I
mhm,
understand what I think are the underlying principles so that I can help each person find how to have it actually work for you
mhm. So I have
without,
a question. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah,
So
go
there are
ahead.
lots of people who enter this field, whether it's NLP, whether it's the change work processes, looking for like a structured process that is more concrete in order to find results. Whereas wholeness is a completely different approach. So it has everything that's not concrete. It's more of um, trusting the process and allowing things to happen.
Yes,
So
yes.
how would you like, what would be a good tip for people to start doing that? Because if uh, from the Andreas work, which was very pragmatic and very structured, and the submodalities and very detail oriented, you eventually came to this work that is very global and very ego dissolving, etc. So how can people make this transition who are struggling and are still searching for a structure if they want to
Yes,
learn this?
yes, yes. Yes, yes. Here's the deal. I think the main question is, what do you want more, structure or results? If the
Okay.
main thing, if structure is the main thing, well then, okay, then I don't have any good answer for you. But if the main thing that you want is results,
Hmm.
then my suggestion is try out wholeness work. Don't trust me. Don't take it on faith or believe,
Hmm.
don't believe in advance. Try it out. Find out if you get the results or not.
Hmm.
And that's the ultimate. So my claim is that this is actually the most precise work I've ever done.
Nice.
And it
Okay.
is actually the most structured work, but it is
Hmm.
a different kind of structure than what the conscious mind recognizes as. It's a different kind of structure.
Hmm.
But but the wholeness work, once you learn all the levels, for example, and well, it's already in the level one book, a
Hmm.
start on this, is that you learn the structure of the unconscious that holds problems in place. So
Hmm.
we've been talking about the ego or the I call it the limited self. I
Hmm.
think that's an
Okay.
easier way. The ego, the I that we found, that's an experience of limited self.
Hmm.
If I think, okay, somebody asks me, Connirae, who are you? And I go, oh, I'm this cloud-like thing that's on the top of my head. You know,
Right.
obviously is not really who I am.
Mm,
It's it's a smaller or limited version of who I am. And yet, if unconsciously that's the I that is existing and running my life,
mhm,
if when I unconsciously think I am going to talk to my partner, I am going to solve this problem, if the I that I'm accessing unconsciously is smaller, which it pretty much always is for
okay.
most of
It's
us,
a bit of
then
a
it's
technical
limited.
question. Okay, so a bit of a technical for the
Yeah, go
NLP.
ahead.
So is the I that you're talking about a part that people work on in core transformation, or is it a different thing?
Yes, yes. I consider it different than a part.
Mm-hmm,
Um, so I don't use parts language. You
mm-hmm,
can think of it as a part. And
mm-hmm,
technically, it meets the definition of a part. It is an aspect of myself, but not all of me. So
mm-hmm,
yeah, it meets the definition. But if you do traditional parts work, even core transformation, which is not traditional parts work, it's a
mm-hmm,
deeper, it's very much, core transformation is very much aligned with wholeness work, and it gets to the same deep level of change. But,
mm-hmm.
but if you're finding a part, you'll never, if that's if you probably won't get to the same structures that we get to easily with wholeness work. So you won't find the sequence of eyes that we find in wholeness work, for example. You won't find the authority structures that we find in wholeness work. So
Okay, and I'm
wholeness work
sorry to
helps
interrupt
us
you again.
access something different.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, but because you mentioned the sequence of eyes, some people who have have some experience of wholeness, but not a lot, tend to say that maybe the eyes connecting is some form of a timeline, but it's not. So can you clarify what the sequence of eyes is that people connect with?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's best to let all go of all those concepts.
Mm-hmm,
It is likely that for some individual, the sequence of eyes that you find may have some relationship to your timeline.
mm-hmm,
But I think it's not necessary, it's not needed to think about it that way, and it's better to let go of categorizing it. And
right.
but the more we box it in with our conscious mind,
Mm-hmm,
the harder it is to make the deep change.
okay.
And here, I'm glad you asked that question because it brings me to something else that I would like to say. And you
Mm-hmm.
tell me if this makes any sense to you, because you've been through the wholeness work trainings. See,
Mm-hmm,
uh, and that is, I think that with wholeness work, we are really learning to speak the language of the unconscious. So
okay.
Jung used to say that the dreams are the language of the unconscious. It's the unconscious attempting to speak to us, you
Mm-hmm,
know. But then what do we do with it? We try to interpret it, we make meaning out
mm-hmm,
of it. So basically, that's not the language of the unconscious. Interpreting, making meaning out of things, categorizing, evaluating, all of that kind of stuff is the language of the conscious mind. It is not the
right.
language of the unconscious. So with wholeness work, what we do is we learn to speak the language of the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can be, sometimes the conscious mind parts that are going, but I had so much fun coming up with all of this meaning and analysis, you know. And sometimes we have to include that part, you know, the one who wants to make the meaning and have fun doing that, and kindly
Mm-hmm,
include that and let that melt also. But in terms of getting change, rather than just satisfying the part that likes to make meaning, you know,
mm-hmm,
in terms of getting actual change, that works most efficiently if we communicate with the unconscious in its own terms.
mm-hmm,
And that is, if I could say real generally, it's leaving meaning and content behind, shifting to what I call the sensation quality level. That
okay.
makes it possible to get some really quick change. And
Right.
I'm saying more than it's possible to, I'm not giving you the experience to right here to be able to make sense out of that fully. But I hope it's intriguing enough that you might investigate and
Mm-hmm,
find out if I have the backup there to really back up what I'm saying, because I think that in this book,
mm-hmm,
and or in one of the courses, you can find that walks you through. The book will walk you through.
mm-hmm.
Or
And I
you
think
can, Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
small like demonstration that we did, and there's lots of examples of you doing longer demonstrations if people on YouTube that people want to go through like a deeper exploration of
Yeah.
that. I'll share
Yes.
that in the description. But my next question is that this work has evolved through multiple levels. So there's the levels 1 through 4 of the wholeness work, from the foundations to advanced stuff. Can you talk about the evolution? So was it like a single discovery, a series of unfolding insights, or what was it?
Yeah, great question. And I would have to look back at my journals to understand the timeline again, to give you an accurate picture. In general, I was always doing a lot more than I was teaching. My
Right.
teaching followed more slowly because I tended, so I was exploring in myself for quite a while before I ever taught it.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, and by the way, this is partly because as a result of that physical issue, I was
Mm-hmm.
not functionally in shape to stand up in a training room for a day and offer a training. That was just too much for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
to be in a room full of people was too much for me back at that time when I started doing this. Um, so I first was doing it with myself. Then I began guiding a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
I would try it if my husband would let him. I'd try it out with him, and and so on. And then I taught it in a group. And the first time I taught it to with a group, then I had to map out more precisely the language than what I had to do for myself. So that
Okay.
was when I got more precise about the language. That was
Mm-hmm.
in 2011 or 12. I'd have to go back and look that I started getting, but I started doing it in 2007 myself. If I,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm going to have to look. I didn't look at the timeline before I talked to
And
you.
sure.
It's probably right here in the books, but I believe 2007 was when I started doing it. I have to look back at my journals to know for sure.
I think a lot of people who knew of Steve and the way he worked would like imagine being a fly on the wall of you trying that work on him because he was very pragmatic and very scientific. So if he went through these processes and experienced them, that would have been an
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So he rebelled against it at first, you know, but and he kind of go, "What do you mean this field of awareness? That makes no sense," you know. So it was in attempting to communicate it to him that was real helpful for me in getting the language really sensory based, specific,
Okay.
something that anyone could follow along.
Hmm.
And so he did then, he did then find that it worked for him.
Hmm.
Um, he tried it out with his migraine, pre-migraine auras. He got really good results. It surprised him because he didn't expect any results at all. Um,
Hmm.
he thought the whole thing was a little too airy-fairy. But then,
So
but he's a man, like you said, he's always interested in trying something out and he's always interested in results. He's always been that way. And
mhm,
so he tried it out with his pre-migraine auras and I'm going here. Would you like to try this? It's unlikely it works, but it could work, and it's not going to do any harm. So and so he's going, okay. So he does the first step. He finds the eye, notices the sensation quality, and the whole thing, just even before I could invite it to dissolve into awareness, the whole
mhm,
thing had melted away as soon as he
mhm,
had shifted to the sensation quality. The first time it worked that way. So I'm trying to do the next steps, and he's going, Connirae, you don't understand. It's already gone. The pre-migraine, it's gone. And
So
and that took like 1 minute or or 2 minutes or something. It was
So I think the paradoxical thing for a lot of people, and what you were mentioning about Steve's experience, which is a lot of people struggle with the attachment to outcomes. So they want results, but at the same time, when it comes to the wholeness work, it's letting go of outcomes and not needing things to happen or just going through the process of letting go. So, can you explain how the letting go process works? So we let go of these polarities and just allow ourselves to experience this inner oneness and freedom.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I would like to add that the letting go of attachments,
Mhm.
do that exercise in level 2. So
Right.
it's just for people to know that one's not in, it's not in this book, but it is in the level 2 course, both the streaming video course and in the live online course. And yeah, a lot of us, and I put it in level 2 for a reason. And
Mhm.
one is because it doesn't make much sense to people at the beginning. At the beginning, people are not thinking there's any point to letting go of attachments oftentimes. It's like, I have these outcomes. I want to have these outcomes. And when we do the attachments, letting go attachments exercise, it's interesting because it's paradoxical. We What we let go of is our tunnel vision and our rigidity. What we
Right.
let go of is the sense that things have to go a certain way. And it kind of opens us, and I think you used the word freedom, and I like
Mhm.
that word. Yeah, we feel this underlying freedom that happens. And
Mhm.
part of the attachment releasing naturally and organically and effortlessly is
Mhm.
about also including the polarity, or the which is the what we've been avoiding. And this is the piece that people are not usually consciously aware of, that when I'm attached to this, there's something else I'm avoiding. But
Mhm.
by the time we're in level 2, it's very easy to approach these areas in the language of the unconscious, which is very, very different than the language of the conscious mind. So we're
Right.
not thinking about what I think I'm avoiding.
Mhm.
We're accessing the actual unconscious avoidances, and the process gives us a way to do that.
There are many other things in the process which people might be interested, like exploring authorities and
Yeah.
exploring teamwork and exploring family constellations and
Yes,
uh,
yes. In the
different
level,
stuff out the
yeah,
level.
in the level 1 book,
Mhm.
and the level 1 training, you do have, yeah, just what you're describing. We have the main structures of the unconscious. The wholeness work journey guides people in a systematic path that
Mhm.
I've come to through trial and error, and mostly starting with myself. The whole
Mhm.
wholeness work path came to me through finding what I still needed, and
Right.
then checking to see what's the universality or not. Is
Mhm.
this seem to be universal or not? And the journey guides us through kind of a universal experience of a natural path of growth and evolution, we could say, of development. And the necessary place to start is the dissolving of the ego, like the spiritual teachers were onto, the letting go
Mhm.
of the small self, and and that itself solves a lot of problems without ever talking about them. People do
Mhm.
that, and then they say, "Oh, my life is easier now. I don't feel the kind stressed out the way I was before. I'm sleeping better. I'm, this, that, and the other. My relationships have, they find all these changes happening just from that. But then the next stage is to find what I call the unconscious authorities, the unconscious
Mhm.
experience authorities. And this again is not what we would think if we were thinking it out with our conscious minds. What we actually discover is quite different. But
Mhm.
finding these, it becomes easy to transform, integrate, and heal this aspect of our unconscious. And it tends to change things like unworthiness, self judgment, self criticism, shame, and embarrassment, those
Mhm.
things. And then the third phase is working with what we could call attachments, that whole area.
Mhm.
And this is the hardest one I have to describe, but it's easy to experience it, and it's in the book. Um, but it's working with loss, emptiness, and it works, and this covers the same ground that attachment theory deals
Mhm.
with a lot about it. It's a way of reintegrating the kind of nurturing that a lot of us wish we had, but nobody ever really had all the nurturing we really wanted. you know? And so the holes that exist in our psyche due to that lack, and we find these things and heal them. So that journey is in this, also in the level one.
So if people are curious to get onto a wholeness training, when's the next one and how can they know more information about it?
Well, the next one right now is happening very soon. It's November 4th that it's
Mm,
starting. And
okay.
it meets twice a week and
Mm,
it's set at a time made, it's going to be really comfortable. It's the easiest for people in North and South America and in Europe. And
mhm,
then it gets, I apologize, I can't find a time that works for everybody around the whole globe. But it every some people join in the middle of the night from Australia and New Zealand or Japan, and I just that's more than I would be willing to do. Other people join from those other time zones and they get the course through the recordings. So you
mm,
can join by recordings, even if you're not attending each session live. So we
mhm,
meet twice a week. But if you can attend live, it's a unique opportunity to break out into to learn and practice together.
mhm,
It's not a lecture kind of course. It's let's do this together. And
mm,
then you have a chance to find out how it doesn't work for you, raise your questions, and me and or the team. I keep the group at a size that we can make sure everybody is supported.
okay. So, since you've been doing this for a while, what was the most surprising or unexpected application of wholeness in the years
Mm,
you've been teaching and
wow, the most surprising or unexpected application. I'm sure these are gonna be popping into my mind now over the next 24 hours. Right now, I'm drawing a blank.
mm,
Um, but each time someone, you know, in a way, each person is unique, and
mm,
the way each person thinks of to use it for their own benefit is like, I just it touches me. I always and I always learn from the ways people think to use it. So,
mhm,
but a couple of things that came to mind that do come to my mind already as you speak on this. One person emailed me. She got the she didn't wasn't even joining a live course yet. She got the book, um, and got the video course. And um, she said I was diagnosed as bipolar. I've
mhm,
been was diagnosed years ago. I've always been bipolar. I've tried all kinds of therapy and all kinds of meditation to attempt to deal with this. And some things help manage it, but nothing has really changed it. And this
mhm,
wholeness work, I've only been practicing 2 weeks so far, but it's already, this is in the email she sent to me at that time. But already, this is the first thing that I can feel it's really making a difference. I'm not so anxious like I used to be. And I'm already feeling more of this peace and calm. And she described a few other differences that were already happening for her. So that's one example. Um, Another particularly touching example was a woman who this was from the level 2 methods when we
mhm,
integrate the other and things we where we feel hurt or victimized by another person. That's in the level 2 course. And she chose to work with the experience that she'd had. She was from Ukraine, and
mm,
her experience that from being from as a young child, she said, we grew up. It's not just this current war. It's that it's we. This has been always happening between Ukrainians and Russians, and
mhm,
it was in my culture that we hate Russians because of what they've done to us. That's the perspective of my community. So I used that for the exercise, and she described it in such a touching way, the change that she went through. And
Mm-hmm.
then she shared afterwards how she said afterwards I just felt this love towards the Russian people. And then afterwards I felt guilty, like am I deserting my own people because I don't hate them anymore? You know, and it's kind of funny, but this is the kind of way I think each of us tends to feel about our own group. That we're, you know, if we actually now love the people that my group is supposed to hate, does this mean I'm deserting my, you know? So she had to work through the feeling of guilt also. She used wholeness work for that too. And um, then later on, 6 months later, she emailed me again and she said, my city has just in Ukraine was just attacked. And you know, and I looked to try to find the place where I used to feel the hatred, and it's just not there anymore. It's just like an open space to see. I feel sad. I feel compassion for everyone involved, but I do not feel the hate anymore. And so I thought that was beautiful. And it just, to me, that not I mean, some of us have been fortunate and we haven't been in a situation where we experience that, where we're not in a war zone. Some of us
Mm-hmm.
are in a war zone or we have, but either way, I think we all have our parallels in our own life and our woundings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it can really help us in this deep way.
Mm. Okay. Um, Before we finish, thank you so much for this very, very interesting chat. It was enlightening. And if you wanted to give like a last thought for people watching this, what would it be?
Ah, yeah. I hope to see you. I hope. And if I don't see you in person, if it's not right for you in person, um, if this connects with you in any way, I hope you'll check it out. And um, I feel like we will be connected. We already are. All of us in the world are connected, is how I feel. And I know this more in my bones through doing things like the wholeness work. But I just, I guess my parting thought is just I bow to that which in you. Somebody famous said the original of this, but I bow to that which in you is the same as lives within me. Mhm. There's a famous person who said that much better than I can say it, but the thought is not belong to anyone. It's, you know, it's a truth, I think, that just like I bow to that light within you that is the same as the light within me. And that leads us all in our own journey of unfolding and something a little bit better. Oh, you know what? There is one more thought I'm going to say. I just have to, if you
Go
don't
for
mind.
it. Go for
It's
it.
just, you know, I think that um, when we choose to grow ourselves, when we
Mm-hmm.
choose to like what I'm starting to think of is this it's Milton Erickson's form of enlightenment, which is belief system free. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just this experience of the well-being that is there and that we're all a part of. Um, that when we make that our choice to let that unfold in our own lives, that's the starting place and the best service and gift we can ever give to the world. It's the beginning with ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I wish you a lovely day ahead. And thanks for being
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you so much for your interview. I really appreciate it. It's been enjoyable to talk with you about these things.
Likewise, it was an
Yeah.
honor, pleasure.
Yes, yes. Okay.